Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I'm just sitting here in my robe drinking my morning coffee looking sexy as hell as usual. And for those of you who say I don't look sexy as hell when I do these videos in my robe, nobody cares what you think. I didn't ask you shit. That's good. Alright guys, let's talk a little bit about metabolic damage. A few people brought it back up the other day in video comments, and I'll talk later about reverse dieting with you guys. That's kind of another topic, but it's very heavily related. Unlike a lot of people in this industry, I am not trying to sell reverse dieting to people. I don't offer coaching services, and I don't sell ebooks on reverse dieting or fixing metabolic damage. I have no financial interest in keeping up this charade and hoax. And it's no secret that Dr. Lane Norton and I have butted heads quite a bit in the past, which has gone as far as courtrooms and police being involved. And he has made a large part of his career on this idea of metabolic damage. The reality is metabolic damage isn't actually real. And I know a lot of you are going to chime in and say, well, I've suffered from it, you don't understand. I absolutely do understand. I've done a previous video on this, several actually, but I had one where I linked a lot of resources on it. It went to an article written by a medical practitioner called Metabolic Derangement, and they linked quite a few resources, studies. The truth is, when we study it in the lab, it turns out metabolic damage isn't real. The Minnesota study is one of the largest studies ever conducted on starvation studies for very physically active people. We didn't find this metabolic damage in any of these people who we subjected to long bouts of cardio for months on end while eating extremely low starvation level calories. Their metabolism changed very little other than what can be attributed to weight loss and muscle loss. And that's usually what we find. At most, the most extreme cases we've ever found in a lab is a 15% shift in base metabolic rate based on hormones. Everything else is just due to your shifts in weight. And 15% of BMI is very, very small. Someone who has a BMI of 1,500 calories, 15% of that is barely over 200 calories. That's not very large in the grand scheme of things. What we actually have happen is the brain's defense mechanisms. And I want to state up front, if you have suffered what you thought was metabolic damage, other people told you was metabolic damage, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm not calling you a bad person. What I'm telling you is that your brain has a very high survival instinct. You might actually have a higher than normal survival instinct, which is why you suffered from what you thought was metabolic damage. And here's what I mean. People who do these contest prep type things, this is one of the reasons they're so unhealthy. Your body, your brain, everything about you knows that what you're subjecting yourself to is unhealthy. It is starvation. Anyone who gets down contest level lean or close to it has actually starved themselves. It is dangerous to your body. Your brain knows this. It will create, because you've induced it yourself, your brain starts to realize that you're intentionally restricting food and killing yourself. Because if you do it long enough, you will die. It will kill you. So since you are trying to kill yourself through depriving yourself of essential resources that you have access to, your brain will play tricks on you. And people will suffer delusions. And we found this in lab studies. All of that's linked in the resources on the other video. We have found in lab studies that when you videotape people and put them in a metabolic ward to where you can track them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, what ends up happening is that people who are subjected to prolonged starvation and are forced to track their food can't actually accurately track it anymore. They'll actually eat as much as 2,000 calories a day more than they're tracking. And when you catch it on videotape, they don't believe you. They think that you're calling them a liar. They get defensive. They get upset. And they genuinely believe. They only ate 12 or 1,300 calories when they actually ate 3,300. And you can't convince them otherwise until you show them the actual videotape footage. So metabolic damage doesn't appear to be an actual physical thing. It appears to be a psychological thing, meaning people are genuinely convinced that they're eating less food than they actually are. And they become delusional. But you have to remember, this is a starvation-induced delusion. It doesn't make them weak people. It doesn't make them bad people. It is a chemical response in the brain creating a delusion based upon starvation. It is a starvation-induced form of psychosis. All the available research suggests that the metabolic damage we've seen is in fact psychological and isn't something going on through the rest of the body to where you're actually burning less calories and you start regaining fat. It would be wonderful for starving children in third world countries if this were actually true, because then they wouldn't all starve to death. But the reality is they do. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. Please check out the other video and the resources if you don't understand this or you don't realize that what I'm saying is actually backed by the data, the research. Please go check all of that out. And if you enjoyed this video or found it informative or entertaining, I would greatly appreciate it if you click like down below. Thank you so much if you do that. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.